You know the rule. When you're in trouble, you go live. I'm outside the law offices of Arthur Lynn in San Jose, California, and we are looking to see how many private judges are complying with the law. And just a moment earlier, we found out that Arthur Lynn had taken a case as a private judge. Arthur Lynn has been a controversial minors counsel for a number of years. And can you see if that's coming through or if it's getting buffered? Because I only have one bar in here. Hi, McDonald, I'm happy you're here. Yes, squirrel reporting. We are outside the offices of Arthur Lynn, a controversial minors counsel who is now doing private judging. I don't have my microphone plugged in. I want to see if you guys can hear me. Can you give me a thumbs up or let me know the sound's okay? So when an attorney becomes a private judge, it requires the consent of both parties, a stipulation. And we knew that Arthur Lynn has recently become a private judge in a case involving a doctor, and there were some issues related to child custody. And Arthur Lynn has a long and controversial history as a minors counsel. And so the law permits the public to be able to come to these offices and view the records that the private judge has, just as you would be able to go to a courthouse and view the records. And so I knocked on the door. It was locked. I told them why I was here. I said my name. Arthur Lynn knows that I report a lot on his minors counsel appointments. And the staffer that came said that she was going to be right back. And it has been over 30 minutes that we've been waiting here. About 20 minutes. And that's a delay. That's delaying public access to these records. And so when an attorney is paid to be the public court judge in a case, they are required to notice their offices where they conduct hearings as a public courthouse. And Arthur Lynn has this office noticed as a courthouse. So you guys are waiting with me as we're asking for access to public records. Those are the records that he has taken in from the court, taken those records right out of the courthouse, and he now has them as he is being privately compensated to be the private judge in this case. And the case involves a high asset case of a family from Los Altos, California. One of the wife in the case is a doctor, and this case was not posted by Sharon Roper on the list, but we had information that the case had moved into private judging, and so we're waiting to see if we get access to the public records. The public has a right to attend any hearings that Arthur Lynn conducts. He has an obligation to notice those hearings, so we came to see where he was doing that. And apparently we caught his staff very off guard. So a lot of times these attorneys work as minors counsel for years. They get to know all the attorneys and judges in the area. Arthur Lynn has been going to that holiday party back to 2016. He was actually the one that alerted us to it. He told us about the song lyrics and what to expect from that party. Arthur Lynn has worked closely with an attorney now retired by the name of Robin Yeamans. And Arthur Lynn was in a minors counsel case that was one of the worst that we've ever seen. And Arthur Lynn got a permanent restraining order against the mother, never disclosing that his client was being criminally prosecuted for SA crimes as a minor. And so these attorneys that mess up kids as minors counsel are now moving on up into private judging, where they get a lot of money from these high asset cases. And even though that is a legal scheme that is completely lawful, the attorneys are required to post the cases and allow the public access to their hearings. And the public also has a right to see the court documents. So here it is. We came just a little after 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, and Arthur Lynn is not allowing us access to these proceedings. Are you recording? You should. And if you can, so I have two people with me. That means 3 members of the public are trying to get in to this private judge's offices to see the court documents he has taken over and to also see where he posts the hearings and where he conducts the hearings that the public has a right to hear. Somebody said, sound is similar to when people pinch their nose to disguise their real voice. Is that true? We have, all of a sudden the signal has popped up here. It was at 1 bar and now I'm at 5. So is the sound okay, you guys? We're all just waiting. The public is waiting for access to this private judge's office. We've been waiting for, whoever said Susan is lying, do not listen. You must be sitting in Arthur Lynn's office right now. Not only am I not lying, I have 2 people here with me as witnesses, and I am recording what is happening. So you guys decide what the truth is. Let's see. Let's see if we're gonna hide that little user. They can go somewhere else and talk about people lying or telling the truth. I think I have one moderator in here. I think the Johnnies are at work right now. Somebody says, Susan, I see you from a camera in the hallway. Yeah, you know, hey, remember what I said. I just gave you a wave if you can see me. If you all don't understand the right to record in public and that you're being recorded at all times by the government, by flock cameras, by private businesses, by private homeowners with their Ring cameras, I don't know what to tell you. So the fact that I pick up my camera and record my news gathering activity to show you what I am facing, if someone has a problem with that, they need to go over to the Hallmark channel and get on that platform. So we are all waiting from whenever I started this live stream. We were probably waiting 20 minutes ahead of that. And that was for our request for access to his private judge files. And once an attorney takes over the job of a public court judge and they're paid privately to do that job, they still have an obligation with court records and other. So if you go back through my videos, you'll remember that Michael Smith, the private judge, called the police on us. And BJ Fadum, he was getting served. He's also a private judge. He called the police on us when he was getting served with a subpoena to appear in court. Jessica Huey, who acts as a private judge calling herself a parenting coordinator, called the police on us. So one might wonder if Arthur Lynn is in there calling the police on us, because these minors counsel and private judges have a pattern and practice of not following the law, not providing public access, and then calling the police for backup. So right now we're playing a little waiting game so we can talk all things private judging. Once an attorney takes over a private judge case, they are obligated to curate the records, to hold hearings that have public notice. And if somebody walks in and wants to see those court records, they're in the custody of the attorney and their staff, which is what we were asking to see. When the private judge is done with the case and have issued their final orders, then they have a right, then they have an obligation to return all the documents to the court under California Rules of Court 2.400, and we have only seen 2 attorneys acting as private judges complying with that law. So these attorneys get paid a lot of money to do the job of a public court judge. In one case, they can make as much as a public court judge makes all year, paid for by taxpayers. And that means that their office becomes a courthouse. That means that their staff becomes court staff, and they have an obligation to give the public access to these proceedings. So I don't know what you guys are all talking about. Whoever said this channel sucks, you can go on over to Hallmark. You're out. I'm going to take you out of here. And if anybody has any questions about private judging, which is what we're talking about, and whoever said Nard dog punched a hole in that wall, I don't think you need to be here. So we'll remove you. Paid privately or publicly? Whoever asked that question, DJ Plas 2. A private judge is paid privately. 2 parties have to agree to use an attorney. The attorney has to disclose their conflicts of interest. They tell what the rate is that they're going to charge, and then they are privately paid to be a public court judge. Arthur Lynn, when he acts as a minors counsel, can be privately paid if the parents have money and the court says they have money, or he can be paid for by taxpayers. And a couple of people listened to my last video that I dropped yesterday about Minors Counsel, and those people were interested to know about these attorneys being paid for with public funds. So when Arthur Lynn is a minors counsel and the parents in the case can't afford his fees, then he gets paid for his services by taxpayers. And we have found a number of irregularities with judges, really in cases where the parents can't afford his fees, they make the parents pay anyway, and we have tracked that Arthur Lynn puts liens on those parents' homes. So on a minors counsel, what those attorneys do is they're representing the best interest of children. And that is very loosely defined. There are no perfect parents, and certainly attorneys are not perfect parents. There is no legal standard for what perfect parenting is. And so once there have been allegations of abuse or something else in a case, a judge will appoint a minors counsel. That minors counsel has the ability to get the child's school records, medical reports, even speak to their therapists. And they often have more rights and abilities than the parents involved in a divorce or a custody dispute. Arthur Lynn's most infamous case was when he represented a young man in his parents' divorce case. The young man did not want to go to his father, complained to CPS, to police officers, and there was a huge incident here in the parking lot. And rather than stick around to make sure that his client was okay and that it was resolved, the young kid, he was about 16 or 17 at the time, maybe 16, he got 5150'd and he got taken to an involuntary mental health hold. And the response from Arthur Lynn after that was to cut the child off from the child's mother. And the child then began being criminally prosecuted for some serious crimes. And we heard from a lot of those people. And when I reached out to Arthur Lynn about that and how that was in the best interest of his client, he said he had no comment. And then after getting a restraining order against the child's mother, so she could not talk to the child or help the child sue Arthur Lynn, Arthur Lynn put a lien on her house because a public court judge, even though she was on Social Security disability and didn't have the money to pay him, she had inherited a house, and Arthur Lynn wanted his money out of that. And I believe the father in that case had his fees paid for by taxpayers, or Arthur asked that the mother pay the fees entirely. So taxpayers are paying for these attorneys, and minors counsel is a very powerful position in a family law case. The attorneys will usually bow down to what minors counsel wants. It's never about a legal standard of what is in the best interest of kids. It's what the attorneys make up and tell the judges and make recommendations, which the judges rubber stamp. And the judges allow these minors counsel to stay in cases 5, 10 years until the kids age out, keeping control over the children, because once the kids turn 18, they could effectively sue those minors counsel. So I will keep telling this and clarifying it. Minors counsel, just like police officers, are paid for by taxpayers, and attorneys acting as private judges doing the job of a public court judge are responsible for public access and public oversight. And we can see that these attorneys don't like doing any of this. And they're just simply not following the law is what they're doing. So, hi, you have an answer? So when we came to get public access, we didn't get it. The office is locked, and the public has no access to this. So we'll go out and see if they called the police, but Arthur Lynn, private judge extraordinaire, in a high asset case involving a local doctor, is not giving us access to his private judge files. And I just documented that right here.